Hello dear DSC candidates, welcome back to my Grammar for Success channel. I am Koresh Babu, a retired lecturer in English from Hyderabad. In today's video, I am going to teach you about the major types of drama. This literary aspect is very important for your DSC examination, and I therefore request all of you to watch this video till the end without skipping it in the middle. Thank you so much. Without wasting our time, let us get into the video. Major genres or types of drama. What are the major genres or types of drama? Means tragedy, comedy and tragi-comedy. They are very important from your DSC examination point of view, and therefore I am making this video. Okay, let us know something about these three kinds of drama. Here tragedy, comedy, tragi-comedy are three major genres of drama. That one point is clear. Tragedy, comedy and tragi-comedy. These are the three major genres of drama, and one more important point about them is each has its own distinct characteristics and purposes. So each and every one of them has its own distinct characteristics or traits or qualities and also purposes. Okay, and here you pay attention. First of all, I would like to talk to you about this tragedy. What is this tragedy? Tragedy is a genre of drama that typically involves serious themes. In tragedy, you can find only serious themes and depicts the downfall of the protagonist. So in this tragedy, the theme will be generally serious, and in this, you can find the depiction or the portrayal of the protagonist's downfall. That means it describes the downfall of the protagonist. The protagonist often has a tragic flaw, that is in other words called hamartia, okay, that leads to his downfall. Downfall means to his destruction. And in the tragedy, the hero or the protagonist will have or will suffer from a tragic flaw. Tragic flaw means it's an unfortunate flaw or a distressing flaw or a lamentable or a deplorable flaw. Flaw means what? A defect. Okay, flaw means a defect or a fault, or you can also say some imperfection. So this protagonist will have this tragic flaw in him, and that will ultimately lead him to his downfall, and invoking the feelings of pity and fear in the audience. So the this downfall of the audience will invoke what? The feelings of pity and fear in the audience, and ultimately resulting in catharsis. Catharsis means what? So some kind of purging of the emotions. So emotional release is called catharsis. Okay, catharsis means emotional release after the downfall. After you watch the downfall of that protagonist, you will find some kind of emotional release or some kind of purging. Okay, something like that. That's called catharsis. So this is about tragedy. Now let's go to learn about its characteristic features. Okay. Characteristics of the tragedy. What are the characteristics of the tragedy? So the first characteristic feature of the tragedy is the tone of this tragedy is always serious. Serious means very well grave, and also somber. Somber means another melancholic. Okay, it's like that. So the tone of the tragedy is serious and somber. This is the first characteristic of the tragedy. And next, it focuses on human suffering and moral dilemma. So this tragedy always focuses on human suffering and also moral dilemmas. So that is there. And you go to the next one. Protagonist usually faces a tragic fate due to a flaw or a grave mistake. Because of the tragic flaw in him, because of a grave mistake in him, the protagonist will face a tragic fate. He will meet with a tragic fate. So that is there. So these are the three very important characteristic features of this tragedy. And you go to the next one. Ends in disaster. So this story, this tragedy ends in disaster, often with the death of the protagonist. The protagonist will meet with death at the end of the story or at the end of the drama. So in this way, these are the four important characteristic features of a tragedy. Okay, please keep these things in your mind. And one example I would like to give you here to make you understand this. So here Shakespeare's Hamlet is there, and this Hamlet is a tragedy, you know very well. And where can you find the tragic scene? Means you can say the play centers on Prince Hamlet's quest. Okay, the Prince Hamlet is a prince and is a quest for revenge against his uncle. So you can the whole play revolves around the quest of Hamlet for revenge against his uncle King Claudius, and this leads him to a series of tragic events. And since he tries to take revenge against his uncle, that attempt will make him go through a series of tragic events, and ultimately it will result in his death. Okay, so this is really a great tragedy written by William Shakespeare. Now you move on to other important things. Comedy is there. Okay, very briefly I am giving you the details of all these kinds of drama. Okay, next one is comedy. What is comedy? Comedy is a genre of drama that is characterized by humor and a light-hearted tone. So you can find a lot of humor in this drama. You can also find some light-heartedness, so funniness you can find in this comedy. Okay, and here comedies often depict ordinary characters in amusing situations. So what do the comedies do? They describe or they portray ordinary characters in amusing situations, typically aim to entertain and amuse the audience. And the purpose of this comedy is only to entertain the audience, to amuse the audience. That's very important. And here they usually have happy endings. Comedy itself tells you that the end of that story is always happy and all that. So that's why these comedies will end always in happy endings. Okay, all right. And you go to the next one, characteristics. What are the characteristic features of the comedy? Let us look at them. Light-hearted and humorous tone. The tone of the comedies is always light-hearted. Okay, very happy and joyful and all that. And here it is also very humorous. Humorous means very funny and jocular and all that. And here you pay attention. It focuses on ordinary people. The whole story of this comedy focuses on ordinary people and everyday situations. So the story runs, the story revolves around the everyday situations. Okay, and here it employs wit. You can find some wit in this, some satire in this, some clever dialogues also you can find in all these comedies. So wit means some kind of humor, some witticism, some satire, okay, some irony, and also some clever dialogues. So all such things you can find in comedy. So these are the characteristic features of the comedy. And let me give you one example to make you understand this. Now let's move on to the next slide. Next point about the comedies is often includes misunderstandings. There will be misunderstandings in the story, you understand that, and mistaken identities. So the characters will mistake one character for another character, and thus that there will be evoked some kind of laughter, some kind of humor and all that, and romantic entanglement. Some romantic stories will also be there, and they will also evoke some kind of laughter or humor in the comedy. So misunderstandings, mistaken identities, and romantic entanglements, all these are there in the comedies in order to evoke some kind of laughter, some kind of light-heartedness in that comedy. And you go to the next one, ends happily. So these comedies always end happily, whereas the tragedies end unhappily or sorrowfully or sadly, but the comedies always end happily, and often with marriages and reunions. So generally these stories will end with the marriage of the hero, heroine, the reunions, the separated lovers will get united, so they become one in marriage and all such things. In that way the comedies will have happy endings, while the tragedies will have unhappy endings. That thing you know very well. And here one example is given. What is that example? Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream is there. It is a comedy, and in this comedy what happens? The play involves various romantic entanglements and comedic misunderstandings among lovers. So among the lovers there will be romantic entanglements, okay, romantic complications, and also comedic misunderstandings, culminating in multiple marriages and a joyful resolution. So all these things evoke laughter in the audience, and because of these things the entire drama looks to be very humorous and light-hearted. So that is there. And now you move on to the next genre of drama. Tragic comedy is there. You see, the name itself tells you that this is 50% tragedy, 50% comedy. Tragedy plus comedy, tragi-comedy. So 50% tragedy will be there, 50% comedy will be there. 50-50. So it is like that. Therefore, it's called a tragi-comedy, right? And here, this tragi-comedy is a genre that blends elements of both tragedy and comedy. So that is the this tragi-comedy is a mixture of these two, tragedy and comedy, right? And you go to the next one. These works often contain serious and potentially tragic situations. So in these tragic comedies, you can find serious and potentially tragic situations, but that are resolved in a positive or humorous way. But those tragic situations will be resolved in a humorous way, creating a mix of emotions. So you find some tragedy there, you also find some comedy. So tragic comedy mixture is there. A mixture of tragedy and comedy. So therefore, some kind of sorrow is there, some kind of humor is there, some kind of sorrow, some kind of humor. Two things will be mixed together, and it will be a kind of drama. It will be a kind of variety drama and all that. And here you pay attention. The characteristic features of tragicomedy are combines serious themes with humorous elements. So the themes are serious, but they are combined with the humorous elements, and that's why that evoke a kind of laughter among the audience, right? And you go to the next one. Contains both tragic and comedic incidents. So two kinds of incidents, two kinds of situations you can find in this tragic comedy, right? And that's why, and often presents a complex emotional experience, balancing sorrow and joy. So in these tragic comedies, sorrow and joy, these two things are equally balanced, and therefore some tragic atmosphere you can find in this, and at the same time some comic atmosphere also you can find in that. So this is the greatness of this tragic comedy. And now you move on to, typically it has a resolution that avoids a complete disaster. So in this tragic comedy, there will not be complete tragedy, complete sorrow, or complete melancholy, but often resulting in a bittersweet, sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet. Bittersweet means some bitter, some sweet. When two things are brought together, that's called bittersweet or happy ending. So in this tragic comedy also, there will be a happy ending. Okay, and here in the in the tragedies you can find unhappy endings. In the comedies you can find happy endings. In the tragic comedies also you find happy endings. So that is there. And one example is given here. What is that? Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice is there. Okay, it is a tragic comedy, while the play deals with the serious themes as justice and mercy and prejudice. So these are the serious themes actually. Justice is a big theme, okay, and mercy and prejudice. So these are all the big themes. Though this tragic comedy, The Merchant of Venice, deals with big themes like justice, mercy, prejudice, and contains the potential for tragedy. All these things might lead you to tragedy. Ultimately resolves in a manner that brings relief and some measure of happiness to the characters. So ultimately what happens, the problems are solved in such a way that they bring relief and some measure of happiness to all the characters of that drama. So that's why this Merchant of Venice is a tragic comedy. Okay, though it deals with some serious themes, it ends with a happy ending. Okay. In this way, so far we have learnt about three important genres of drama. One is the tragedy. It has an unhappy ending. And comedy, it has a happy ending, and tragi-comedy, it also has a happy ending. So these are the three important genres or kinds of drama. Now let's move on to other important things. Key differences between them. What are the key differences between these three? Tragedy focuses on serious themes and ends in disaster. That's the first point. And this is at a glance chart. Okay. Please keep all these things in your mind. And this tragedy aims to invoke pity and fear. Okay, when you watch this tragedy, it invokes pity and fear in the audience. Okay, and leading to catharsis. Catharsis means emotional release. Okay, that's called emotional release. Means your emotions are purged or your emotions are released. Okay, at the end of the story, right? That's called catharsis. And here you pattern comedy is there, focuses on humor, ordinary life, and ending happily. So this comedy focuses on humor. It deals with the ordinary life of the people. It always has a happy ending, or it ends happily. You know that very well. And aims to entertain and amuse, often satirizing human folly. So these comedies aim at entertaining and amusing the audience, often satirizing what human faults, human mistakes, and all that, human imperfections. Okay, here you go to the next one. Tragic comedy is there, blends serious and humorous elements. So in this tragic comedy you can find serious elements as well as humorous elements, and usually resolving in a way that avoids complete disaster, often with a mixed emotional outcome. Though it begins with some kind of serious themes, it ends in such a way that it brings relief and some kind of happiness to the characters of that drama. This tragic comedy aims to present a nuanced emotional experience reflecting the complexities of real life. This tragic comedy will generally present a nuanced, a new emotional experience to the audience, reflecting on the complexities of real life. So this tragic comedy, reflecting the complexities of real life, it tries to bring or present a new emotional experience to the audience. And now let's move on to other things. Key concepts of hamartia, hubris, catharsis, and pathos. See, these are very, very important aspects that all the literature candidates must be aware of. So these terms are key concepts in the study of literature, particularly in the analysis of tragic works, especially in dealing with tragedies or tragic works. Okay, these things will come to your rescue to understand that tragic literary work. So here hamartia is there. Hamartia refers to a tragic flaw or error in the judgment that leads to the protagonist's downfall. So hamartia means it is nothing but a tragic flaw or tragic error of the protagonist that leads him to the downfall. So this is therefore called a hamartia. Keep this point in your mind, and it is a critical element in tragedies. So because of this tragic flaw only, the protagonist will be led to downfall or destruction, and here often stemming from a character's inherent traits, decisions, and actions. And this tragic flaw will come out from their inherent traits, or sometimes from their decisions, or sometimes from their actions. And here example is there. In Shakespeare's Macbeth is there. Macbeth's hamartia is his ambition. You know very well, in Shakespeare's Macbeth, what is the hamartia of that Macbeth? That is nothing but ambition for power. And his desire for power leads him to murder King Duncan, setting off a chain of events that ultimately result in his own downfall. So because of that desire for power, that ambition for power, what happened? That leads him to the murder of King Duncan, and thereafter he has to go through a chain of tragic events that ultimately result in his own downfall. So that is there. So this is about this tragedy that is Macbeth. So in this Macbeth, the hamartia of this Macbeth is nothing but ambition for power and all that. And now let's move on to other things. Hubris is there. Hubris means what? Hubris is excessive pride, okay, or self-confidence. Excessive pride or self-confidence is called hubris in Latin, and that typically leads to the protagonist's downfall. And that also, not only the tragic flaw, but also this excessive pride or overconfidence or self-confidence, that we can also lead to one's downfall. That is there. And here you pay attention, it often involves overestimating one's abilities. Because of this self-confidence, because of this pride, what happens? The hero or the protagonist overestimates his abilities, okay, and he also underestimates the potential consequence. Overestimating his abilities and underestimating the potential consequences or the results. So that is there, right? And here example is there. In Sophocles, Oedipus Rex is there. Okay, very interesting story. And Oedipus's hubris lies in his belief that he can outsmart the prophecy, and he ignores this prophecy. He outsmarts that prophecy that he will kill his father and marry his mother. That was the prophecy which was told to this Oedipus. But Oedipus doesn't believe in that. and he outsmarts that prophecy, and because of his excessive pride, or because of his self-confidence and all that, he doesn't believe in this prophecy. And next, what happened? His arrogance blinds him to the truth and leads him to tragic end. And thereafter, because of this excessive pride in this Oedipus, overconfidence in him, that will lead him to his tragic end. That is the story all about this Sophocles' Oedipus Rex. Okay, and you move on to the next one. Third one, catharsis is there. What is this catharsis? Catharsis is the emotional release or purging. So when you watch some tragedy, so at the end of the story, or during the story also, people start responding to the emotions. If the protagonist is in serious dangers or sorrows and all that, the audience will also respond to that, and they start weeping or they start getting tears into their ears. So it's like that. That's called emotional release, and that the audience experiences after the climax of the tragedy. So it is like that. And here it involves feelings of pity and fear, and this generally the tragedies will invoke the feelings of pity and fear in the audience, and leading to a sense of renewal and restoration. So that is that. They get some kind of emotional release. They get some kind of purging. So that itself is called catharsis. And one example is there. In Othello by Shakespeare, the audience experiences catharsis when Othello realizes his mistake in killing Desdemona and takes his own life. See, in Othello, what happens now? The audience will get some emotional relief or release or relaxation. Emotional relief or release or relaxation when Othello realizes his mistake in killing Desdemona and takes his own life, and he also kills himself. That very well. When they see this scene, what happens? They get some emotional relief. They get some kind of emotional relaxation, right? That, and the intense emotions of the play culminate in a powerful release of tension and sorrow. So when the tension is relieved, they feel very happy. So it is like that, and that is called catharsis. You go to the last one, pathos is there. Pathos means what? It refers to the quality in a work or the feature in a work. What is that? That evokes feelings of pity, sympathy, sorrow. Pathos means it's a kind of a feeling, it's a kind of a quality that evokes the feeling of pity, the feeling of sympathy, the feeling of sorrow in the audience. So that is called pathos, right? And next, it is a crucial element in creating emotional connection between the characters and the audience. And because of this pathos only, the audience will get connected with the characters of that drama. If the heroine is weeping, automatically the audience will also weep. If the hero is weeping, the audience will also start weeping. So that means they are getting connected to the characters that are enacting the drama on the stage. So that's why that is there, very interesting. So that's why it's a crucial element, and it creates a kind of bond. It creates a kind of a connection between the characters and the audience. That is there. So pathos is very important. Example, in Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist, the plight of the orphaned Oliver and struggles elicit pathos from the readers who feel sympathy for his harsh experiences and root for him. I taught this Oliver Twist for 4 or 5 years, I think, and while teaching that story, I used to feel very sad about this orphaned Oliver. Really very pathetic story, very very painful story. Charles Dickens has written a wonderful story. I love this very much. Please, if you get a copy of this, go through this Oliver Twist while reading the life of this orphaned Oliver. You feel very sad and melancholic and all that. You feel like weeping when you read about this orphaned Oliver, and his struggles elicit pathos. When the readers start reading that story, they get some kind of emotion. They become emotional because the scene, the dialogues, the things that are there in that novel will evoke some kind of feeling of pity or sympathy and sorrow, and therefore you start weeping or start feeling very sad all about this orphaned Oliver. So it's a wonderful story. So this is pathos is there. Now let's move on to learn other things. Understanding the concepts in context. So here you pay attention, hamartia and hubris. together given. Hamartia is a tragic flaw. Hubris is an excessive pride. You know that very well. Together they are given. Hamartia is the tragic flaw or mistake, while hubris is a specific type of hamartia characterized by excessive pride. You know that very well. And here both contribute to the character's downfall, and whether it is the tragic flaw or this excessive pride or overconfidence, both of them would lead to the protagonist's downfall. And hubris specifically deals with arrogance and overconfidence, that you know very well. And here catharsis and pathos are there. Catharsis means emotional release, pathos means evoking the feelings of pity, sorrow, sympathy and all that. Pathos is the element that creates emotional engagement and evokes feelings of pity, sorrow throughout the work. So when you read the story of that Oliver Twist note, that will create some emotional engagement and it evokes the feelings of pity and sorrow. I'm damn sure about that. ఆ కథ చదువుతుంటే ఎంత దుఃఖం వస్తుందో, ఎంత బాధను. ఆ చిన్న పిల్లాడు, తల్లిదండ్రులు లేని పిల్లలు అట్లుంటారు. జాగ్రత్త. We should be very careful with the little children. So that was really very melancholic and very sorrowful and all that. Very pathetic. Pathos నుంచి వచ్చింది pathetic, కర్ణ రసోపేతమైనటువంటి కథ. Right. And here catharsis is there, is the ultimate emotional release that the audience experiences at the climax conclusion, providing a sense of resolution. So catharsis is nothing but the emotional release or emotional relief, emotional relaxation at the end of the story. Right. So all these things are given at one place on one slide. You can have a very good idea about all these four important literary aspects. And now let's move on to do some exercise on these things that we have so far learnt. Okay, multiple choice questions on tragedy, comedy and tragi-comedy. Okay, tragedy. On tragedy, some questions are composed and you try to answer all of them. Which of the following is a characteristic of a tragedy? Happy ending, supernatural events, a downfall of the protagonist, use of slapstick humor. Okay, who is considered the father of Greek tragedy? Sophocles, Achilles, Euripides, Aristophanes. Third one, which Shakespearean play is a tragedy? Here he is giving you 4 options. You choose the right. A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, Macbeth, The Tempest. In a tragedy, the protagonist often has a tragic flaw. What is this tragic flaw called? Anagnorisis, peripetia, hubris or catharsis. Which of the following is a common theme in tragedies? Love and marriage, war and heroism, revenge and justice, misunderstandings and confusion. Comedy. Which of the following is a characteristic of a comedy? Serious tone, happy ending, tragic hero, noble characters. Who is known as the father of Greek comedy? Sophocles, Achilles, Euripides, Aristophanes. Which Shakespearean play is a comedy? Hamlet, Othello, Twelfth Night, King Lear. Comedies often use which of the following devices? Supernatural elements, dramatic irony, puns and wordplay, soliloquies. In comedy, characters often experience misunderstandings and confusion. What is this known as? Farce, satire, slapstick, situational irony. So about this, it is not explained to you. Okay, even then you try to answer this question. Okay, and because so when the characters experience misunderstandings and confusion, that is called what? Farce. Okay, tragi-comedy is there. What is that? Which of the following best describes a tragi-comedy? A play with a tragic end, a play with only comedic elements, a play that combines elements of both tragedy and comedy, a play that focuses on historical events. Which of the following is an example of a tragi-comedy? Romeo and Juliet, The Tempest, Othello, Antigone. In a tragi-comedy, the tone of the play is usually solemn and serious, light-hearted and humorous, a mix of serious and humorous, satirical and critical. Which playwright is known for writing tragi-comedies? Arthur Miller, Samuel Beckett, William Shakespeare, Henrik Ibsen. What is a common theme in tragi-comedies? the inevitability of fate, the power of love, the complexity of human nature, the absurdity of life. General questions are given here. What term is used to describe a play that has elements of both comedy and tragedy but ultimately ends happily? Tragedy, farce, dark comedy, romantic comedy. Which of the following best describes a catharsis? A sudden twist in the plot, the resolution of a comedic misunderstanding, the emotional release experienced by the audience at the end of a tragedy, the use of slapstick humor to make the audience laugh. Here slapstick is used. Slapstick also means humorous, okay, evoking laughter or something like that. Okay, and you go to the next one. Which Greek playwright wrote plays in both the genres of tragedy and comedy? Is Sophocles, Aristophanes, Euripides, Achilles, right? And you go to the next one. In Shakespeare's plays, which character type often provides comic relief in tragedies? The protagonist, the antagonist, the fool or jester, the hero. Which of the following is a defining feature of a tragi-comedy? Strict adherence to tragic form, resolution of all conflicts in a comedic manner, a blend of dark serious themes with lighter humorous elements, focus on the downfall of the protagonist. You know that answer. And here for all these questions answers are given. You just pay attention. Key to the multiple choice questions on tragedy, comedy. Tragedy, 1 to 5, comedy 6 to 10, tragi-comedy 11 to 15, general 16 to 20. So these are all the answers given for these questions. And you go to some special exercise given on the 4 important literary elements: hamartia, hubris, catharsis and pathos. And let us do this exercise also, okay, so that we can have a very good idea about all these important aspects. Okay, and here you pay attention. Hamartia. What is hamartia in the context of tragedy? A happy ending, a character's fatal flaw or error, a comedic misunderstanding, a supernatural intervention. And which of the following is an example of hamartia? Oedipus's ignorance of his true parentage, Hamlet's indecisiveness, Macbeth's ambition, all of the above. So is there. Hamartia often leads to the protagonist's triumph, downfall, reconciliation, redemption. Okay. Hamartia is most closely associated with which type of play? Comedy, tragedy, farce, melodrama. Hubris is there. On hubris, a few more questions. What does hubris refer to in Greek tragedy? Extreme pride or arrogance, profound wisdom, uncontrolled anger, unwavering royalty. Which character trait is often a manifestation of hubris? Humility, modesty, overconfidence, compassion. In Greek tragedies, hubris often leads to the hero's victory, the hero's downfall, a comedic resolution, a peaceful ending. Which of these characters is an example of hubris in literature? King Lear, Othello, Achilles, Romeo. Catharsis is there. On catharsis, some questions are posed. What does catharsis mean in the context of a tragedy? The moment of realization for a character, the emotional release are experienced by the audience, the climax of the story, the final resolution of the plot. Who coined the term catharsis in literary theory? Sophocles, Aristotle, Euripides, Plato. The catharsis is intended to have what effect on the audience? Amusement, emotional cleansing, intellectual enlightenment, confusion. Which part of a tragedy typically leads to catharsis? The exposition, the rising action, the climax, the resolution. Pathos is there. What is pathos in literature? Logical reasoning, emotional appeal, ethical persuasion, dramatic irony. Which of the following best illustrates pathos? A logical argument in a debate, a speech that appeals to the audience's emotions, a character's ethical dilemma, a humorous anecdote. Pathos is primarily used to convince the audience through logic, create a moral lesson, evoke emotions in the audience, establish credibility. In which type of writing is pathos most commonly found? Scientific papers, legal documents, tragic plays and speeches, instruction manuals. General questions on hamartia, hubris, catharsis and pathos are posed here. Which of the following best describes the relationship between hamartia and hubris? They are unrelated concepts. Hubris is a type of hamartia. Hamartia and hubris are synonyms. Hamartia always follows hubris. A character's hubris often leads to his, I must say. Pathos, catharsis, hamartia, redemption. In the context of a tragedy, catharsis is achieved through the audience's emotional release, the protagonist's victory, the antagonist's defeat, the use of humor. 20th question, last question. Which literary device is primarily used to evoke pathos in the audience? Metaphor, logical argument, emotional storytelling, ethical appeals. Okay, these are the 20 questions given on hamartia, hubris, catharsis and pathos, and now answers are also given here. Now look at the answers. These are the answers for 1 to 9 questions. Okay, from 10 to 20 questions here. Okay, these are all there for you. If you cannot answer any of them, you can just go there, and if you have any problem, you please make a mention of it in the comment section. I'm ready to explain that. Okay, especially about farce. Okay, if you don't know anything about that farce, I'm ready to explain it in there. Okay, with this video comes to an end. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hello dear DSC candidates, thank you so much for watching this very interesting and very important video. If you have any problem, please mention it in the comment section. I am ready to answer all of them. Okay, with another beautiful video, I shall be back to you. Until then, bye, see you all of you. Right.